One is a Hall of Famer from Utah State University. Another led the running Utes to the national championship. And the other started 4 years in high school and was a state champion at Bountiful High School. The trio of Spencer Nilsson, Britton Johnson, and Spence Checkitts is back together once again on The Drive in the Dominion Energy Studios. We've got you covered with the best analysis from all the local pro and college basketball teams from Cache Valley to Provo. Now let's send it in to the state champion himself, Bountiful Brave Pride and Joy, Spence Checkitts.
All right, you know what time it is, 5 o'clock hour, The Drive on a Wednesday. It's my favorite hour of radio we do all week on the show. We have Spencer Nelson, Britton Johnson live in studio. We're going to break down everything with the Utes, BYU, Utah State, latest with the Jazz as well. So excited for this. And I guess you guys you're coming straight from Channel 2, right?
Well, we were mentally preparing for the event
yes.
at Channel 2 tonight.
All right.
Yeah, we're excited to be on tonight.
You can catch these guys live at 10:35 on KMYU. But before they're on, you can catch this guy with Dave Fox as well. So tonight we are doing Talkin' Sports, a frickin' service.
Wow.
Ratings bonanza. All three of us will be on Talkin' Sports tonight with Dave Fox tonight at 10:35.
We're on deck. What are you going to do when you're on?
Are you going to just going to lead?
You going to walk?
Lead
get it out?
In. I'm just going to lead you guys in.
You're going to wait for some signals, some buzzes?
I'll say nice things about you guys because apparently, Britton, you decided to take shots at me.
I don't know.
Hey, if you know one thing about Spence Checkitts, if you take a small shot, even like a microscopic shot, it comes back in a big wave.
Bazooka.
It comes back hard. He doesn't like people taking shots at him.
Well,
even if it's like in a friendly manner.
No.
Here's the thing. Did Godfather teach you nothing? The minute someone starts to disrespect you, you can't let it slide.
That's what I'm
you
saying.
cannot let it slide.
I don't think Checkitts is Italian, but I think you must have some in you.
Especially when you take it outside of the family. Yeah. Then we got to make sure that you know what's up. When you filled in for me and you interviewed Frank Isola, it wasn't a shot. You insulted me.
I don't know if...
Wow.
I don't know if I'd go there.
We have the sound. We can bring it back.
We might have insulted him, but then we both brought it in with love about how much we care about Spencer.
You keep that within the family.
There you go. Yeah. Spencer does. All right. Let's start Jazz. Okay. 2 straight wins, but Cleveland is the worst defensive team in the NBA. Washington is number 2. Actually, strike that. Washington's the worst defensive team in the NBA. The Cavs are number 2. Now, Spencer, we'll start with you on this one. Obviously, it's better that they won than that they lost, but it's March, man. Like, I need to know what the Jazz look like when they're playing against the best teams in the league as opposed to continuing to beat up on bad basketball teams.
Look, things were really rough right after the All-Star break. They need to go play some bad basketball teams to try to find their mojo. So Cleveland game couldn't come soon enough. New York couldn't come soon enough. They play that tonight. But then things get difficult again with the Celtics after that. So is there a whole lot to read into that Cleveland game? No. They beat a very bad basketball team, but sometimes you just need to see the ball go in the hoop. You just need to win a basketball game. Hopefully that gets a little mojo going.
Same thought.
I like what Spencer said because while I would like to see the Jazz as quick as possible figure out how to get past the Rockets, how to get past the Clippers, by playing them, figure out what little angles they can take to find an advantage. He's exactly right. You have to get some confidence right now, and it's something the Jazz don't have. The numbers guys right now are so confusing to me, and I really don't know that I would have an answer if somebody said, what's the biggest reason? So maybe you guys can help me out with this. The Jazz are in the middle 20s right now in transition defense. I'm okay with that. But they're also in the middle 20s with half-court defense. The thing that we talked about for years was Jazz score a bucket, they get back, set up their defense, you won't score, or you'll have a very difficult time scoring. And they're not even in the top 10 right now. I mean, so those are strange to me. To hear Mike Conley actually verbalize now that he's frustrated and he can't figure things out, that's one of the most positive professionals I've ever seen in all sports because I don't think that guy ever gets shaken. And to hear him now say he's frustrated, I can't remember if it was Tony Jones that sort of pulled that out of him. There's definitely some concern that I don't know the answer to.
So to build on that, they're the worst defensive team in the NBA since the All-Star break, 30th. Okay, and a couple of numbers here. Okay, so as of Monday of this week, last in the league in steals, second to last in the league in offensive rebounds, and second to last in the league in block shots, and their center is Rudy Gobert. And Britt, we'll start with you, then go to Spencer on this. We knew that they traded defensive presence for offensive prowess. We knew that there was going to be a dip when Fave and Crowder and even Rubio go, and Boyan and Conley and some of those acquisitions are made. I don't think, and they, by their own admission, they knew there was going to be a defensive dip.
Yeah.
I don't think they thought it would be like this. In fact, I know they didn't.
Well, I think they felt like that was all covered because two-time Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert's on your team, with ambition to not necessarily change that mindset of how hard he plays on defense. I think we're learning how valuable Favors was. And when I say learning, like a lot of people out there, yeah, duh, no kidding. But it's more and more because I thought after a while at the beginning, okay, yeah, Favors, very valuable, but the Jazz are smart enough and coached well enough that they'll figure out how to make up for that loss. They have not figured it out. So that's where I'm getting at, that we're learning more about how valuable Favors was, is that I for sure, Spence, thought over time the Jazz would figure out how to cover up that absence of a great backup center, a guy that could play alongside Rudy as well.
Yeah, and that's been a gap. But, I mean, you look at Crowder, you look at some of the other guys that left. I mean, it was – the chemistry was great, and they had it figured out defensively. And they obviously traded some of that or decided, hey, we need to get better offensively if we're going to reach – Western Conference Finals, and numbers stick that out. You have to be able to score the basketball. But in doing so, they lost whatever that was on the defensive end. I think Favors is a part of it, but I think it goes to a bigger issue where they just aren't connected. I remember as a coach, we would constantly talk, are you connected as a team, to where if one guy's moving, is everyone else moving? When the ball moves, do all five guys move with the ball? Those types of things. And when you watch the Jazz defensively, most possessions, they are not connected. Now, the NBA is obviously a different game than college, but there still has to be some connectivity, and you don't see that. And you see that in Quinn's language when he's talking about, well, we need to run back on defense. Some of the most basic things aren't happening. And so I think, obviously, personnel matter, but just are they connected on the defensive end? And are they thinking, hey, we're just going to get buckets, we'll outscore them? I mean, there's something missing for sure.
So when we last spoke, ironically enough, it was Wednesday of last week, and then the Celtics were in town that night. So I went over to the building, and it was a late tip because ESPN was in town. It was an 8:30 tip, and so the show ends at 6. I ran home and I changed, and then I was over there with about 90 minutes before tip. And so I was there early. I went down. I talked to some coaches. I talked to some GMs. I talked to Ryan Russillo was in town. I watched the game with him, chatted with Gordy Chiesa, because I wanted to get a feel for what's going on, okay? Yeah. So here's the thing, man. Like, there's real concern about the Jazz from people that are in charge of making decisions. And not just, like, what's going on right now, but if this thing continues to go south, there's some hard decisions that have to be made. And I'll tell you, I can't say who it is.
Rudy's contract, right?
We're going to get, and this is where I want to get, okay? But I can't tell you who it is. But when he saw me, I didn't even have to say anything to him. He walked up to me and he goes, "We're bleeping broken." He said that to me without me saying, I didn't say hello.
Yeah.
He said,
I know it was the Bear.
Just take it easy.
Was it the Bear?
Yes. We're bleeping broken. But here's the point, okay? Sometimes in this business, which I think is a little bit infuriating, hyperbolic panic so people listen to my that's not what this is.
Yeah.
Their decision makers are concerned. Okay, so before we get to Rudy, Supermax, Conley, player option, all that, we'll start with you, Britt. Just how much is at stake starting right now towards the end of this season?
Man, this is an important time. And they again, going back to what Spencer Nelson said, this is a great time for them to play some cupcake teams and hopefully get some mojo going, hopefully confidence. But then again, you want those difficult games. You want that Celtic game, and you want a Houston Rockets game or a Clippers game around the corner to find out exactly what it is that are your pain points. Listen, coaches, sometimes we stamp that their teams are going to be, such and such. For example, we always just stamp that Whittingham's defensive line, we're going to out-tough everybody.
Trust Kyle Whittingham's D, yeah.
Trust the D. We watched this year some of the most athletic players that are going to be drafted here soon get whooped twice, right? Now, if you're out there listening, I apologize. I know that, that's maybe sensitive to some of those linemen. I don't want to meet him after the show by all means, but they did, and I think they could admit it as well. They got whooped by Oregon and then by Texas. That's not normal for a Whittingham team, but Whittingham's going to learn from that. What I'm getting at, Quinn's kind of going through the same thing. I think we always just stamp when Quinn Snyder is coaching a team, you will get this for sure. No, these coaches are always learning. Spencer, you know better than anybody. You've coached at a high level that, yeah, you might have your mindset that you teach players, but different players come with different personalities and attitudes and way they learn. And I think we're seeing that this year with Quinn. He probably thought, when I get Mike Conley, the Jazz fans can expect this. We're not. We're learning different. And right now it's like it's starting to get too late to figure out what to do with that. But at the same time, I ask people to just kind of, be careful with the way you now all of a sudden they go crazy with things that are happening. I mean, Coach Snyder will continue to coach a certain way, but every once in a while you just get things that aren't a good fit for you. And we saw it in football last year. We're seeing it right now with the Jazz.
Your question about how important is this time for them between now and the end of the year and big decisions that are going to be made, I think these are the situations where you get a team that becomes either propenses to the top and has a chance to become a Western Conference champion or make a championship, or fade into oblivion. And when I say oblivion, you're talking between 9th and 6th for the next 12 years. I mean, I'll never forget. And I'm not saying the Jazz will go this route. I think Justin Zanuck and
Timberwolves
Lindsay,
is what you're talking about.
Or I'm talking about the Pistons when Dumars panicked and went and paid Charlie Villanueva and Ben Gordon ridiculous money. I mean, how you spend money and those contracts is huge, and has also the way this season ends also has an effect on Rudy and Donovan, the way they view the franchise, and all of those things. And so, figuring out how to however you want to say it, how to pick up those pieces and make sure that this ship is headed in the right direction is huge, because of the decisions that have to be made in the next 18 months.
And that's well articulated from both of you, because what I want our listeners to really understand here is, while obviously we will focus on the Jazz-Knicks tonight, and we'll focus on every single game as it comes and hope they win and play well and do something in the postseason, there is so much more at stake when you look at the macro and not the micro than most people understand. Meaning this, there's a thought around the league right now that with what Houston has done, going all small and having it work, that players like Rudy Gobert no longer have a consistent home in the league. I don't know if that's an overreaction, but let's say that's a 10 on the overreaction scale. Then you have to decide whether or not you even entertain the option of allocating your supermax salary space to Rudy Gobert. Because if you do that, that's who you are for the better part of the next 5 or 6 years, because you can't surround him with other pieces. Mike Conley has a player option for $34 million. He's coming back. Okay, and the 800-pound gorilla in the room that nobody wants to talk about is, if you continue to go south, you make a tough decision on Rudy. Mike never recaptures that form. Donovan Mitchell, who has no choice but to come back because he will be a restricted free agent at the end of his rookie deal in 4-5 years from this offseason, will have the same option that Gordon Hayward had when he left the Jazz. That's why I'm saying, I'm not trying to be overdramatic here, but this was a team that was built to do something special this year, but specifically probably next year. If it doesn't work this year, we'll start with you, Spencer. I don't even know what the exit plan would be.
Yeah, you'd have to get really creative and hope Billy King gets another GM job in the NBA.
Absolutely.
so that you can take advantage of him and try to get some pieces in place. Because you're right, it's all about windows. I mean, that's what it is. You have windows of what you're building towards, and you're 100%. The windows started this year, and really I think they were focusing, hey, next year's going to be, the best chance. But this year, because of the Kevin Durant injury, because of the Klay Thompson injury, because of those injuries, opportunities now have arisen that probably weren't there. But you built this team thinking next year, hey, we're going to be peaking, and they still might be peaking. But But that's the window, and if it doesn't work in that window, well, then you have to be really careful about the decisions you make because, like I said, or you could get stuck in mediocrity really quickly. And in this league, everyone knows you either want to be really, really bad or really, really good because when you're in between, you're not going anywhere.
It's purgatory.
The Rockets thing, Spence, I don't feel like it's had a lot of attention this year, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like it's new because the Warriors started Draymond Green at center at 6'6", 6'7", right?
But they had Kevin Durant who's 7 feet. It's
playing
new,
the three in the wing,
new,
but yeah.
and they also played your boy Zaza, and they had JaVale McGee. What Houston is doing is new. Like, all of our chips are to the center of the table. We traded our center, and then they go sign Jeff Green and DeMario Carroll. Like, they're all in on
I mean
this.
more like the style. Like, yeah, I mean like the...
No, not the style, but they are
not
not playing anybody who's under 6'7". Like, this is what they're doing is new.
The reason I brought it up because I don't think there's a supermax home for players like Rudy anymore. And so... does Rudy going to have? Are guys like Rudy going to have a place in the NBA? Yes, because there will be a night where you figure out a way to use your 7'4", 7'3", or 7 whatever guy to be disruptive, and it's going to help you every once in a while to have that sort of, to have that piece in your bag. But Rudy, as far as being like a main all-star cog type player, supermax, without being able to hit a jump shot on the outside. I don't think so. With the way the Rockets have exposed teams in the NBA with their ability to spread it out and go 5 out, and with how athletic players are. I mean, the court's the same size court as college, but let's remind ourselves, no zone defense, right? You can't be sitting in the key. The middle of the floor is so wide open, it's unbelievable. That's one of the biggest things I recognized when I got to play my short stint in the NBA was, oh my gosh, when I get by my first guy, there's an ocean. And then somebody slides over, you're either getting to the hole or you're making a great dish. That's why the NBA is so fun to watch, is because of the way it is. But that's also a disadvantage for guys like Rudy.
So we actually have seen the Jazz try zone over the past little bit, and I don't know if that's an admission that things are really broken. Oftentimes, that's my experience, and you guys would know better than I would. Oftentimes, like, I can remember when we were playing against teams that were, like my freshman year, we played against Marcus Camby's Hartford Republic team. At halftime, it was 46-10. Like, it wasn't even fun. And my coach was like, triangle and 2, we got to try all this, because we couldn't match up with them man-to-man,
Typically, that's what it is. And that's where you're scheming. And that's what Quinn and those guys, the coaching staff, are trying to do on the defensive end, are trying to scheme. There comes a point, you love it when you can roll the ball out and tell your guys to just guard. Just 5-on-5, just guard.
Kevin Garnett's Celtics era, right? When they won it, they just guarded.
And there are teams that can just guard, but there comes a point in some games, some teams in general, or just some specific games, where it's not working. And then as a coach, it's your job to scheme. And in the NBA, generally, that's when zones come, is when they're scheming, when they're not able to stop anyone at the first spot, getting to the hole, and it's just a disaster. And so they try to switch something up, put on a junk defense. But I actually disagree with you. I think there is a place for, and when I say disagree, what Britt was just saying, I think it is harder, and you have to have the right personnel around him. But I think there is a place for Rudy. But there's
as a supermax guy.
Yeah, I think there is, because he is so unique. But here's the thing, though. I agree with you when you say, D'Antoni says, throw him the ball. I dare you. Throw him the ball.
Yep.
Rudy has to get better to where he can score the ball at a very high clip, 80, 90% of the time, if he's going to be guarded by P.J. Tucker.
But do you agree? Okay, maybe Rudy, right? Because Rudy's an all-star and he's probably not at his peak yet. But I think what I'm getting at is I don't think there's going to be a home for players like Rudy, right? The DeAndre Jordans, multiple players. I think Rudy will be like an outlier. He'll get a supermax, but the rest of the NBA is not going to offer players like that supermaxes.
It just depends. I mean,
and Quinn knows how to use Rudy really well too.
On a one-on-one basis, because Rudy is so unique. There's not a lot of Rudys, because when you look at the 7-footers now, you're talking Porzingis, you're talking Karl Anthony Towns, you're talking guys that can shoot it. The fact that Rudy is more limited offensively makes it such a unique situation. Guys that are limited offensively at that
Tyson
size,
Chandler, DeAndre Jordan,
I agree with you.
Rudy Gobert. I don't know if those guys.
You will not supermax those guys.
Yeah.
But I think in this situation with Rudy, I think they will supermax him. Now, rightfully, wrongfully.
Yeah, I think so. I actually think we do agree, because I do think Rudy will be a rare case. I could see it going 50-50 right now. And maybe even more 70-30, Rudy get the max because he's so unique.
So there's a lot to this conversation, right? This is why I think this is a great sports radio topic, because it's there's a duality here. There's a lot to keep in mind. It's not just like do it or don't. There's several things to bring up as far as context goes. If this was a market where you can get guys to sign all the time, then maybe you don't think about – I want to say this. I would not supermax him. That's me personally. Yeah. When you're in Salt Lake City and it's tough to get guys to come here, you're kind of forced to, because if he goes, you're starting over, and a rebuild's going to take a few years, and by the time you've done that, your star, Donovan Mitchell, has a decision to make, and you've probably just told him that you're going to lose for 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure that he has the stomach for that. But I think when we look at the reality of the way the league is going, while I agree with you, Spencer, that there's always a home for a guy like Rudy Gobert, I do agree with you, Britton, that you don't give 30% of your cap to a player that appears to be outdated.
Totally valid.
I think there's danger there.
Totally valid.
You know,
it can go ahead, Spence.
No, I totally. Yeah, it's a completely valid point. But like you said, it's not just this situation. There's so many other variables.
There's a lot. Yeah.
There's Donovan. There's the market. There's all of those things that go into play. That's why I think they will give him the supermax.
Well, to me,
should they though? Mm-hmm. I think in this market you have to.
And will Rudy ask for it? That's another conversation.
And that's a great question. Yeah. Maybe Rudy, pulls back a little bit. But the thing is how many years have we been building now? I mean, we've been building since D. Will left, and those guys. I mean, you're talking about 7-8 years, maybe even longer, of building to get to this point. And then all of a sudden, you're going to let Rudy go.
Yeah.
Unless you package a deal or something like that. That's why I think they have to.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Rudy is not only fitting salaries to make it all work, but fitting mindset and knowing that as a player, Spence, I can't have as open of a court with Rudy on the floor. Mm-hmm. I have to kind of as well sort of be conscientious about him and his needs of wanting the ball. And you know what I mean? So there's a little bit now. Am I saying that Rudy's making other players not as good as they could be? No. But it'll be interesting to see how it trends and continues to go on, right? Because if I'm Donovan Mitchell and I'm playing with Cat can space out to the 3 and give me room. Mm-hmm. Everybody can play off Rudy, and there's not as much. While I just talked about how much space there is on the NBA floor, now there's not as much space.
But also with that though, if Cat's behind you, you're Donovan Mitchell playing defense. You don't have a whole lot of confidence.
No, I'm saying if Cat's on your team.
I know. If he's behind you
playing defense
defensively, and you got Rudy, you got a whole lot more confidence that if your guy gets by you, he's going to deter their. Yeah. I mean, there's a give and take.
There is definitely.
And defensively, Karl Anthony Towns, Porzingis, they're not going to give you what Rudy gives you. And here's the thing:
don't get me wrong. If you use Rudy right, there's a lot of benefits as well.
For sure.
The lobs at the rim, the hard rolls.
Talk about point guard play. I mean, you're coming off that pick and roll, and you've got Rudy rolling to the hoop. As a point guard, that opens up so much. Now, Conley's really struggling with his floater and being able to score in that situation. But you talk about Mike Conley last year, and if he was finishing at the clip that he was finishing back in Memphis in the pick and roll and creating plays like that, there's certain benefits that Rudy gives you. Yes, for sure, there's limitations, and he needs to get better offensively so that P.J. Tucker can't guard him in the post. But he brings such a dynamic in so many other situations that most big men can't.
So this is great because I want to end this conversation right here, but both of your responses allows me to ask it in this way, because the other thing I was able to uncover on Wednesday night, and since then have been told by a couple of different people, is there is a bit of a split, a chasm as it were, between should Rudy get the ball and players that are frustrated when they force it to Rudy, and then you see 2 bounces, an awkward left-handed hook, or a bad pass out of a double team. Okay, and that's why I've been saying and Spencer, as you mentioned, for the last couple of years, every time they play Houston, I'm like, do you realize that Mike D'Antoni is literally looking at you and say, throw it to your boy, I dare you, because he's still not great on the block. I don't think he's ever going to be a great passer out of a double team. But as it is, Rudy wants the ball more. And look, we've all played the game. You guys at a much higher level than I have. Everybody plays harder on defense when they're getting buckets or touches.
Sure. Yeah.
So here's my question to both of you. Britt, we'll start with you. Spence, we'll give you the last word. I understand that Rudy wants the ball more. I don't think he should get it a lot more, and I certainly don't think he should get like 15 post touches a game. But this is a complicated dynamic that's made its way into the Jazz locker room. Where are you at with this?
Can I tell you something as well? And this will sort of help answer the question where I'm at with it. A lot of people used to mock Sean Bradley about not scoring more and getting more buckets. When you're 7'6" and you're going into a leverage battle, meaning the 6'9", bulkier, Malone, Charles Barkley kind of guys are guarding you, you're always being knocked off balance.
Right.
Unless you have the size and strength of Shaq. Where guys that like Hakeem Olajuwon that was 6'11", it was more like shoulder-to-shoulder basketball, and he could spin off his guys and use his footwork. But when Rudy's being guarded by a 6'5", thick, strong, and you know, P.J. Tucker was like, how much does Rudy weigh? They answered. He goes, okay, he weighs 10 more pounds than me. He goes, I'll be fine. And he's strong.
P.J. Tucker is strong.
Do you remember playing against
strong.
guys in high school? Like the team would send in their football player, and it was like a 5'10", just strong as an ox dude. And I'm like, I can't post this guy because I have no balance. But I was fortunate to be athletic enough and play a little bit like a guard. I think Spencer was as well.
Well, scouts call it high hips. You have high hips.
Yes.
Okay,
Spencer
has a little
right
bit
there.
more base to him.
I have high hips. So I was fortunate to be able to do other things. But like a guy like Rudy, that's a nightmare for him.
Sure.
Everyone thinks, Rudy, go score on Tucker. If Rudy and Tucker had a one-on-one game, just play one-on-one, Tucker would destroy him because Rudy would have such a hard time scoring. Rudy has to score off a pick and roll versus Tucker. He has to get the ball at the rim, or he has to seal him in the right spot, and then you rely on your teammates to fire a John Stockton-style pass to you at the right moment. So there really is, am I right, Spencer, a disadvantage for the big, tall, lanky guy versus the leveraged, strong, bulky lineman-looking guy.
You're absolutely right, and that's where scheming comes in, to where you're creating offensive flow and motion and timing duck-ins and stuff. Here's a lost art, though. Honestly, post-entry passes and those types of things, there aren't a lot of guys, honestly, that are really good, and you'd say that's pretty simple and basic to do. But the timing and everything has to be really important. But if they're going to guard you that way, I think you have to – either he's in the game and you go to him, because you're not going to get anything else from anyone else. You're not going to get drop-offs or help side or anything. And if
been playing the league today.
Yeah.
But people that saw him were like, no, he was incredible.
And the way that they moved, the types of systems that they had, the play, you're so right. The game was so different.
Right.
You know, from that generation to the Jordan, the Bird, Malone generation, and to our generation. Each generation, the game adapts a little bit. LeBron's amazing. Jordan was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The recent flop winning an Oscar video had me in tears.
LeBron.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oh
I will
my
say
gosh.
this,
And
though.
I heard you on air today say, look, he got hit by a sniper.
Hey,
or
That's,
something.
for a
It's
guy
just-
that big. Yeah.
Hey, this drives me crazy. And I was
He hates
honestly, it
floppers.
was,
No,
I
hates 'em.
hate
I'm with you.
floppers.
Same
I
with me.
hate them.
Yeah.
I'd never go into a deal with a flopper. Okay? Never. I can't trust them.
Speaking like a true financial advisor.
Here's the thing, though. Okay?
You
That
flop,
is so bad
keep
for
your
the
money.
game.
Totally
That
agree.
is so bad for the game.
Yeah.
You're losing
But
credibility.
Why aren't people being fined? Why is it in
they
college
claim they're going to, but they don't,
suspension?
yeah.
It's
Do you
like,
want to know what? That
drives
is
me
so
nuts.
bad for the game, because
terrible for the
20,000,
game.
50,000, 100,000 kids saw that crap.
100%.
And all of a sudden, they're trying to throw their – and you're seeing that in the college game and everything else. And what that does is that lessens the game and lessens the credibility of what's going out on the
Totally
floor.
agree. Yeah.
Shaq
I
had a
hate
great
that.
quote about flopping, and I wish I would have had it prepared, but I know that guy just said he would never flop.
I
ever.
hate –
Yeah.
I got yelled at so many times
got
in
teed
Europe
up.
for not flopping. And I'm telling them I'm not flopping, and they're like, just try and sell the call. I'm not flopping. I refuse to flop. I'm from Pocatello, Idaho.
Love it. All right. We went over overtime, but that's because an hour is never enough with these guys, man. So thanks for coming in. Always great to see you, too.
Thanks,
okay.
man.
Spence.
There he is. Best hour. Or there they are, I should say. Best hour of radio we do all week long. Went a little long, but hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and that will do it for the drive on a Wednesday afternoon. I want to say a special thank you to Zach Harper, Mark Pope, Britton Johnson, Spencer Nelson. I'm Spence Checketts. That is Brady Clark. Enjoy your Wednesday afternoon. We'll talk to you on a Thursday edition of The Drive right here on ESPN 700.